Here's the story.
As we'll ever be.
All right, I think we're ready, folks. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Story Slam. We are your hosts. I'm Gina Sampaio.
I'm Will Rising.
Welcome to the family if you haven't been here before, and that is the theme for tonight. And it is a little bit of a family here at Story Slam. We started in February or March of 2022, and we've had...
My name is Gina Sampaio. I am the Executive Director for the Red Mill Museum Village, and I am a storyteller here at Scout Story Slams.
My name's Will Rising. I work for Meals on Wheels as coordinator, and I'm a storyteller. I tell stories.
Don't look towards me.
Yeah, I looked right at the camera, didn't I? I couldn't help it. I had to sync it. All right.
It's okay.
Again, should I do it again?
No.
Okay, cool.
It was good. What is a story slam?
So, a Story Slam is just an opportunity for the public to come, and we have a theme every month, and people just sign their names up, and then they tell a story that fits in that theme. Now, sometimes people get nervous because they don't know, they think it has to be like very strict in that theme, but as time has gone on, we've been here almost 2 years now, and we have our regular followers, and they have come to understand that it doesn't have to be, very pigeonholed. They can think outside the box. And I think it helps too, even if when they're new here, because a lot of times people show up for the first time and they're like, well, I don't know if I have a story that fits the theme. And I always tell them, just wait, just listen to some of the stories and then see if you feel like, or sometimes they're nervous, but they have to just get the vibe and see that it's very welcoming. And then sometimes they put their name on later. So we always pass the clipboard around, again, maybe 2 times to see if somebody's changed their mind. And usually they have.
And what are the rules tonight, Will?
Well, your story should be 5 minutes or so.
Ish.
Less is more.
They're kind of generalized. The story needs to be true to the best of your memory. 5-ish minutes. Will likes to tell people not to curse too much, but then the last slam, I think I only cursed once, and Will cursed like 3 or 4 times.
What the I try to keep the cursing to a minimum, just because I think there's better ways to tell a story. I mean, I curse a lot in my normal life, but, I don't know, I feel there's something like to be said for, speak well without resorting to that. It's kind of like saying or like, people just drop F-bombs instead.
I have 1 curse word tonight.
I mean, you can curse, but just don't drop F-bombs every other word.
It's an F-bomb.
I don't, every other, how many? You get 3.
It's just one.
And it's funny funny because he still always brings that one up, but it was only because one storyteller who's only come once, and it was, I mean, a year and a half ago. I mean, she was dropping F-bombs like every other word, and it was just great. It didn't add anything to the story. So he's got a little chip on his shoulder about that one.
And I don't like it, but, you know, I get made fun of for that.
What makes a great story to your mind?
What makes a great story? I like to have a little bit of humor, even when I'm talking about something that's typically not funny. I can't help it. That's just been a survival mechanism for me in dealing with traumas. And, you know, humor is relatable no matter what the topic is. So I do think a little bit of humor is good. I think, I don't know, as long as there's something in there that you can relate to.
All right, so as you guys know, I often think of my story at the last minute, maybe on the way over.
Okay, this story takes place on a hot summer Friday in New York City.
And so this was the starting of the gel of this family that I got to be with. So 1945, my dad comes home from World War II.
My story is about Christmas, becoming a member of a family, and whiskey.
My mother had this very old suitcase.
So my sister and I went to high school in Brooklyn. You could tell by our accent, right?
My story goes back to senior year of high school. The time in our lives where we're asked as 18-year-olds to make decisions that will affect us for the rest of our lives.
This was a really tough one, guys, because I have a lot of good stories. Welcome to the family. But I'm gonna go with one about Mom. It's a little at Mom's expense, but it's really at my father's expense, so listen carefully.
My dad was able to touch his tongue to his nose. His sister, his parents could all touch their tongues to their nose. And they're having this huge wedding. And my dad was the youngest one in his family. My mom was the youngest one, hers. So there are like many cousins, many brothers, many sisters. It is a huge wedding. And this was where, let's see, I first found out Samantha was a Trekkie. Found out Fred was gay. I found out that both Woody and Andrew, even though one, at least to my little Midwestern head, was black and one was white, were both in fact Puerto Rican.
And my mother proceeded to spend weeks, probably 6 weeks, baking cookies.
On that Saturday morning, I get up on the stool, I brush my teeth, I spit out the toothpaste, I look in the mirror, and this happens.
And my mother-in-law was so excited to have her first Christmas in this big house. She had it all decorated. The table was set. The dinner was in the oven. She had her little Christmas apron on.
And I'm looking inside, and sure enough, there's all kinds of memorabilia. There's menus and newspaper clippings and photographs. And there's letters.
And the cookies are all on platters, right? There's platters of cookies, and they're everywhere.
And I run into my brother's bedroom where he's studying his Haftorah, and I look at him and I go, yeah. I'm gonna be in the over tongue touching Noah's picture and you're not. Just then he takes his fist, hits me on the bottom of my chin, and the pain is incredible. I'm talking about, there's saliva, there is blood, there is urine, there is sweat, and my tongue is blown up with pain. And of course now I can no longer touch my tongue to my nose.
I stand up and my head is in smoke. And I'm like, does anybody else notice there's smoke? And then my father-in-law stands up, he says, yes, there's something wrong. And he runs upstairs and he sees that the wall behind the chimney of the fireplace is bursting out in flames.
I said, well, should I lock the dog up in the bedroom, or will you keep an eye on the dog? And he denies any of this ever happened.
In Brooklyn at the time, you would take a set amount of courses in arithmetic or English. At the end of 2 or 3 semesters, you would have to take a big exam called a Regents. And we had to take trigonometry, Regent, and I loved it. My sister was beside herself. So what we did was we switched.
What makes a great story, too?
Well, as I've learned, and from doing this specifically, the ending. You gotta stick the landing. It's like a joke. You have to have a punchline. You have to have it has to go somewhere. Everything else is just build up. And it's all kind of about the climax. And not every story has one, and I guess not every story needs one, and especially after doing it for so long and kind of watching so many other people do it and having a little perspective, you kind of can tell when other people should end their stories. And sometimes it's hard. I sometimes will be oh, I should have ended it here. This was the point. But I have so much else to say, and that's where you can kind of get into a little prep, a little composition. If these are the things you want to make sure are said, but this is where you want to end it. You got to find a way to get all that in where it belongs.
So finally, the swelling goes down.
I open the door and everyone is crying.
So, as I'm reading these letters, I'm thinking of my parents in a different manner altogether. I'm saying, they had hopes, they had dreams, everything in the future. They had the whole lives ahead of them. And life never turns out the way you plan and you dream. But I saw my parents in a totally different light. I saw them not as my parents, but as, kids, basically.
And there I am in the front row when my Aunt Rose and Uncle Charlie and my dad all organized the picture. And there I am as the youngest one. I'm 9 years old. I'm in my little blue tuxedo, and I'm there very, proudly with all the older relatives.
And my mother is in the kitchen screaming, "How dare she! How dare she!" And I walk into the kitchen and she lunges at me and says, "She ate 1/3 of all the cookies."
And she was so heartbroken that right after the 7th inning stretch, she gave me a wet willy. And I was officially part of the family.
There was water all over the kitchen from the hoses. We were drunk. I don't know what happened with dinner. But it was fixed for the next year, and we had the perfect Christmas the next year. And my mother-in-law, I'd known her, rest in peace, knew her a lot of years, but whiskey always helped.
Make a long story short, we graduate at 16 years old. My parents think we're geniuses.
For years, to this day, when I get together with my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law always finds a moment to go, "How dare she!"
Give your grandparents a break. They made mistakes when they were younger, but I don't know if I'm one of those mistakes. I could be. I think I may have been. But there's my story. Thank you.
So in saying all that, I consider all these people to be a big part of who I am. They're as integral to my story as any lame first date nickname or any other obscure pop culture reference that I always make. And I'm grateful for the influence that they've had on me. And with that, I also have to say thank you to all of you for letting me chew your ears off for 6 minutes at a time. So with that, happy holidays, and make sure you tip your elves. I don't think Santa does minimum wage.
So at the risk of being the person that always tells stories about my kids, I'm going to tell a story about my kids tonight. And since most of you here already know about our family, you know that my husband and I have 5 children, and that we adopted 3 of them. So I was naive enough to think that taking a class, the Bradley method of childbirth, and reading a book and talking to women who had been through it before was enough to prepare me for what to expect when I went into labor. And of course, that was inadequate. But the only thing that really clued me in as to what I could expect was when my midwife told me that she was glad that I'd shared with her that I was a rape survivor, because she said for some of us, the complete loss of bodily autonomy during childbirth can be triggering. So I was glad that she told me that, but for me it wasn't triggering, but I soon learned what she meant because my body began doing things without my consent. And then when it came time to push, during that 2 hours of pushing, I thought to myself several times, I cannot believe women do this twice. But about half an hour after childbirth, when I had this tiny, perfect, amazing, beautiful human being in my hands, I may have been overheard as to say, it wasn't that bad. And then I was actually back at the birthing center so soon that the labor and delivery nurses remembered me and asked how our daughter was. So going into it the second time, this time I knew what to expect. I did not make a playlist. And even though my husband was terrific the first time, there was one area I thought he could be a little stronger at, and I asked him to please support me more during the transition period. So if you're unfamiliar, that is right before a woman enters the pushing phase, and she can really start to experience crushing feelings of self-doubt. So I asked him if he could support me more, and of course he said yes, but that backfired completely, because when I started to think to myself, I can't do this, I had this angry dialogue in my head where I was like, I have to push now, and I can't do it because I'm too tired, and I'm not going to tell him that I can't do it because he's going to tell me that I can do it because I told him to tell me that I can, so I'm not going to tell him that I can't. So I didn't. But my baby's head felt like it was literally between my knees, and I didn't know why nobody was helping me. So then I shouted at them all, pull it out already. And my midwife took my hand and she said, Gina, I want you to feel where your baby is. And she did not put my hand down here. That baby was still very far inside of me. So that's when I started to cry and whine and carry on about, I can't do this. I've been laboring all night already. I'm exhausted and I can't do it. I do not have the energy to push for 2 hours now. And the midwife and the nurses all said, they were like, oh, Gina, no, honey. This is your second baby. This is not going to be 2 hours. And I didn't believe them, but they were right, because this time I only pushed for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Fast forward 5 years, and it's time to put our daughter on the bus to go to kindergarten for the first time. And I didn't really think I was going to cry, but I cried. It got subsequently easier with each child. And I'm pretty sure by the 5th kid, I did cry again, tears of joy. Fast forward again, and it was time to take our daughter to college somehow. And driving her out to Pittsburgh, that wasn't hard. Meeting her roommate and helping her set up her freshman dorm, not hard at all. It was exciting to see her get started on this new chapter. But getting back in the car to drive 5 hours to New Jersey without her was exponentially harder than watching the kindergarten bus pull away. Now, our son is only a year behind his sister, so he was starting to look at colleges at the time, and he said, oh, Pittsburgh seems kind of cool. And I was like, just go there then. Selfishly, to have you in the same city and the same schedule, it would just be easier for us. And I thought to myself, too, God forbid there's ever any kind of emergency, like at least they would be in the same city. So he applied there, and he did get in. My daughter had spring break, and she came home, and then the pandemic started, and the university said, don't come back. So she finished her freshman year at home, virtually, on the computer. And then when her brother joined her, he was in his own bedroom on the computer. In January, they got to go back to campus, except that my son was put up in a hotel room, and our daughter was in a dorm suite by herself. And even though the younger kids were starting to have hybrid classes, the college kids were still just completely virtual. And for all the different populations that I felt bad for during that isolation, I felt especially bad for the college students. I felt like, they were supposed to be learning who they were without their parents, like living in a city, meeting people, experiencing new things, and instead they were cooped up in their rooms on their computers. They came home for the summer, and then when they went back for their sophomore and junior years, they got to go live with friends and have classes in person. And I was so grateful, and I just knew that I was never going to take that for granted again, what a privilege that is that they were getting to experience. And I was so happy for them that I didn't cry at all on the way back home. Now, I don't think the two of them plan to get together much right away after spending so many months cooped up together during the pandemic. But then they ran into each other at a protest. And I thought, my work here is done. And you're welcome, worlds.
Why are events like this important to small towns like this one?
Right. Well, but the other thing is because where we live, you know, there are little towns and they're spaced out, but then there's also like where I live up the hills, Lebanon Township, we don't have a main street.
Yeah.
Like, so we don't, so in a way this is my town because it's the closest thing to a town, but I'm not a Highbridge resident. So in a way, when we do have these little main street sections, this is where the people from all the surrounding areas can come and, you know, go to. I think it's tied to the larger story of like what's happening in Highbridge. When I was growing up, because I grew up around here, I mean, you didn't really want to go to Highbridge. It was kind of a place that had its heyday, and then it kind of didn't. And then there's been a few attempts at, you know, reviving it. And I think because there's so little to do around here, you know, you get to a certain age, you're not kids anymore, and you're not like just going out to bars, like what are you going to do? And now we have the great coffee shop during the day. She has a lot of awesome events on the weekends at night. We have the vintage shop. Like there's so many things that are starting to happen here. I think people are just thirsty for something else to do.
Good afternoon to you.
I've got my entourage.
Yeah, I mean, as you should.
It's just a regular day for me.
You know, I moved here from a city, and in cities, you find community in these like readily available ways. You find community when you go to the subway. There's a community within that car. And you find community in the grocery store when there's like 100 other people shopping at the exact same time. But I think with that lifestyle that people are living here, people are seeking this connection, like to learn who their neighbors are and to find common ground and to make friendships, to meet other moms or to meet other artists or whatever it is that's happening. What I've fallen in love with this town for is, you know, the quirks. We just have these little quirks that can only happen in this small town. And you can come up with an idea and you can execute it, and by and large, the residents of the town will be behind you. They'll show up because everybody's just craving the next new exciting thing. So that's what's great about this town.
We're like barely making ends meet at this point because it's like, you know, we just had this kid. We were supporting an entire family on this small business, but, you know, we were doing it, but, you know, we were ready for health benefits. We were ready for like financial security and some stability and some, you know, some steadiness to our life. And then, you know, we know what happened March 9th, right? So my husband was just starting to put together his resume, like we were just starting to do this transition. And March 9th, Governor Murphy said that the schools were closed. And I knew soon after that meant that my business was going to be impacted. So I sat outside on this beautiful March day, because I don't know if you guys remember, but March 2020 happened to be this gorgeous month. And we all spent time outside, right? And we all envisioned what life was going to be like. And I sat outside and I just thought, I really think that I need to take 2 weeks off. That's what I told myself. I'm going to take 2 weeks off, figure out how I was going to navigate this moment. Like, do I close the cafe, just call it a day? We did an awesome job here, and I can move on to something else. And then all of a sudden, all of these emails and DMs and messages on Facebook and notes in the mail started pouring in from the community. And they were like, we need you here. What can we do to make sure that you feel comfortable? And what can we do to make sure you stay? And then like the other amazing thing that started happening was people were buying these gift cards like in bulk. Like thousands of dollars were coming in, and it moved me. Like, to me, this is the investment that the community was making on my business with no return, with no guarantee that we would even be open, that they can come back and redeem the cards. They were giving it to me and my family so that we could sustain our life. And
so, yeah, that sustained me both in a mental capacity, like, you know, just knowing that people believed in what we were doing and that we meant something to them. But it also sustained me in a way that I could pay my bills at the very least. I can, you know, continue to keep 1 or 2 baristas on.
And I was sitting outside, my friend Andrew came by, and I was like nearly in tears. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And he was like, you know what, Nicole, like, we're not gonna let you close. You know that, right? He was like, you're not going anywhere. And there was something about the conviction in his voice. I knew that he was telling me the truth. Like, I knew that that was genuinely not only how he felt, but it was how a lot of people felt. I think that it was the first time that I understood what community love was. Like, we know friendship love and we know romantic love so well because we see this portrayed on TV and in movies, but community love isn't portrayed as much, and that's what it looked like. And sometimes, you know, I was putting this story together and like I started crying as I was recalling these moments because it is just so moving what people can do together and that you cared to support me and this dream. You know, I didn't go to business school. I'm an artist. So I very much view this as, this is my art. I'm creating art. Like, I come in here and whatever it is that I think of, I do. I'm not necessarily here like thinking about like, you know, I mean, I do have to think about my margins, but like, but I'm thinking about, well, I have this idea, I want to work with this flavor, or I want to work with these people, or I want to see this happen, and I do it. And there's something special about what happens here in Highbridge and what happens in this like Northern Hunterdon community that supports that in this really unique, special way. And I just think that Story Slam is also kind of like an extension of that. So anyway, I say it all the time, but I feel like it's something that can never be overstated. I'm just so grateful for what this community has done for me and my business. And I'm also so grateful that you responded to like my heartbreak and, you know, surviving postpartum depression, followed by, you know, like just having this courage to move forward through this pandemic was just huge. So that's my story. So thank you.